And I now look to Sir Graham Brady MP to close the case for the opposition and the debate as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chen Kai, could I have the Blue Moon instead, please? Mr. President, I'm pleased to stand here tonight as an optimist. And perhaps the thing that gives me most optimism this evening is that the student speakers on both sides have been by far the best in the debate so far. I have to tell you that I will do nothing whatsoever to change that in the coming minutes. And I thought I'd share with you also the sort of terrible experience I had just a week ago on Thursday last week, when, Mr. President, I found myself speaking not in this illustrious company, but in a lesser institution known as the Cambridge Union. The motion, Mr. President, was exactly the same. The result, I have to say, Nikki, I'm sorry, was a crushing defeat for our side. So, what I want to do really, first of all, is redefine what victory is going to mean in this debate. And the way I see it, if we lose with fewer than 90% of the votes against us, then we're doing really well. The bad news from my point of view is I have to give all of the credit to you, Nikki, and to Chen Kai, given that obviously my speech last week did nothing at all to save the government. Wonderful as well to see close members of Rory Stewart's family here tonight. We'll give him your regards when he next passes by. The only real sadness that I have about being here, Mr. President, is that I had been looking forward so much to reacquainting myself with my good friend Sam Gyimah, who was due to be on the proposition front bench this evening. Unaccountably, he found himself unable to join us. And I tried to work out why it might be. And in doing so, I looked at the film, which you very helpfully have on your website, of his speech on this occasion last year, when he explained that, first of all, that he had campaigned for Remain, but there is something about being in a democracy that if you try to set aside the result of an election simply because you disagree with it, you're in a very dangerous place indeed. I thought that might be one of the reasons. And the other was when he said, if you vote no confidence, you are effectively saying Jay Corbyn should be Prime Minister. So this, I think, might be why Sam felt it was better not to join us again this evening. But also, you know, I have to say, I always enjoy listening to Barry. He's got that wonderful, hasn't he, that wonderful lilting Scottish tone. You could listen to it, you could almost nod off, you could almost be lulled into a false sense of security. But, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, false it most definitely is. And I rely, in support of this assertion, not on my, as he would say, extreme friends in the Conservative Party, not on those who have benefited from privilege through their lives. Well, no, actually, probably they are. I was going to say, but my favourite newspaper, The Guardian. And The Guardian reported of our good friend, Mr. Gardiner, on the 10th of April 2018. It has never been a secret that Barry Gardiner believes the EU referendum result means Britain must leave the European single market and customs union. But it is not what he thinks that is enraging his Labour colleagues, it's that he has been taped saying what he thinks. And in the kind of blunt and uncompromising language that will shatter the consensus that he helped to forge. So here we have Barry Gardiner claiming, ladies and gentlemen, that we are in some way trying to deceive you. A man who was once sacked as Tony Blair's forestry czar. No, he resigned. Anyway, once Tony Blair's forestry czar. He could do the same. He could do the same. He stood there. He stood there and said, "Who will buy their promises?" Well, ladies and gentlemen, we know who is buying our promises. When we look every day at the opinion polls that show the Labour Party on 22%, we see the Conservative Party on 37% and rising. And I predict, ladies and gentlemen, after today's triumph in Brussels, that our poll rating will rise further still. But Barry Gardiner, he closed his oration. He closed his oration with the biggest deception of all, when he said, goodness knows we need an election. Yes, of course we need an election, Barry, but it's you and your colleagues who voted twice to stop us having that election that we so badly need. Beatrice, you said that Boris has no mandate, but twice the opposition has refused that mandate. It's so painful sitting in the House of Commons at a time when we know that we can't deliver all the things that we need to deliver for the country, and we can't do it precisely because of the intransigence of the Labour opposition. Nothing positive to offer, no leadership to offer, a leader of the Labour Party that even 2/3 of his own members of Parliament voted no confidence in only a couple of years ago, and yet they refuse to allow the people a choice in a general election. They said, they didn't just say that we couldn't get a deal with the European Union. They said that we didn't want to get a deal with the European Union. We've heard more of it tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the suggestion that Her Majesty's government has been deceiving the people, that actually we were intent, that Boris Johnson was intent on achieving a no-deal departure from the European Union. But today we see the truth that this government has secured that deal with the European Union, that we are now poised, ready to be able to deliver that promise that Boris Johnson made just a few weeks ago, that he would lead the country to leave the European Union on the 31st of October this year. So who will buy our promises? Well, I think those who will buy our promises will be those who recognise that we stand for what we believe in, that we promise and we deliver. And when we assemble in the House of Commons on Saturday morning this week, the public, the British people, will see the difference between those of us who are prepared to stand on those promises, who are prepared to justify them and deliver them, and those who will dissimulate, those who will find any excuse to frustrate the will of the British people. Joseph, you described Jacob Rees-Mogg. Entitlement, not at the moment. You described entitlement, disdain, and disrespect because he lounged on the front bench. Surely, ladies and gentlemen, entitlement, disdain, and disrespect is what happens when you invite the people to vote, when you allow the people to decide a huge issue, and then you decide, like the Liberal Democrats, that you will ignore what they said. You will simply disregard the votes of 17.4 million people. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a disgrace and would be massively damaging, not just to the government of today, not just to the mood in politics for the week or the month or the year, but to respect for democracy in our country for generations to come. Joseph, you also, you went on to describe problems that follow from a financial crisis, but without ascribing the blame for the financial crisis with which we have had to deal. I spent the years 2007 to 10 on the Treasury Select Committee, taking the evidence from all of those who had seen the damage done by a Labour Chancellor who had dismantled all of the proper regulatory frameworks and allowed that collapse in the banking system to happen.
Why was the Shadow Chancellor in the Conservative Party calling for fewer regulations then? It makes no sense. You know, you're blaming the Labour Party for having, you know, few regulations on the bank, but your party were calling for even fewer.
Forgive me, I'm blaming the people who actually were in government and made the decisions and caused the mess in the first place. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we are, as I say, poised on the verge of answering the great crisis, the great problem that has been neuralgic in British politics for the last 3.5 years, perhaps one might argue for the last 5 decades, resolving the future of our relationship with Europe. Barry Gardiner says this is a deal that cannot get a vote. It's a deal that will not be supported in the House of Commons. Well, I challenge that assertion, Mr. Gardiner. I challenge that assertion because I believe that the House of Commons is populated by people who, in their souls, in their hearts, actually do believe that they should serve the interests of the British people, that they should serve the interests of the electorate, and they should respect the decisions of the electorate, and they should allow our country now to break free from this neuralgia, to move on, to be positive, to be optimistic, and to achieve the great things that we can as a country. Thank you.